Dear friends, we gather today to celebrate the life and mourn the death of Carl Herbert Haag, born July 3rd, 1928, and dying on April 23rd of this year. Carl's long life was centered in family, friendship, and a general sense of fascination with people and gadgets and histories and travel. He was curious and knowledgeable, professional and friendly, courteous and silly. He was endlessly and easily welcoming as he drew people toward him and together with others throughout his life. Many are friends today because of Carl's magnetic ability to bring people together. He leaves behind Carol and Cindy and Ken and Nikki and Elia and Grace, who we hold in the deepest of love and sympathy. For though many of us have lost a friend, a dear friend, a close friend, they've lost their husband and father and in-law and grandfather. We pray for their comfort and that the sacred grief that enfolds them gives way to tender joy and happy memories of a long life well lived in love and service. I've led enough memorial services in front of Carl to know that he would expect some grief, but also want some joy in this gathering. He'd want laughter, and then he'd have a gentle quip in the line afterwards, along with kind words and encouragement for all of the speakers. So though grief gathers us, let us welcome joy as well as we honor a great man who in his life achieved innumerable victories for the good, the kind, and the just, who achieved innumerable victories for all of humanity. We turn to light our chalice in a moment, a symbol of the light and love that both guides us in our faith as well as what we offer the world. Carl signed our congregation's membership book on February 7th, 1965. His name is just under someone named A. Carol Schwartz, who joined on the same day and added later, after her name, is the penciled update, married Mrs. C.H. Haag. We would phrase that differently today. And I normally would stop there, but I know Carl would find this interesting, so I'll mention that he was in a class of 9 people who also joined that day, a list that includes Leland Allen, who is no longer with us, and Carol Allen, who is very much with us. There were 2 Carols, 2 Patricias, a Carl, a Charles, a Blanche, a Leland, and one name that I can't make out. These are actual signatures, and I think that person may have been a doctor because I can't read it. I know it starts with an M or an H, at least I think so, but I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that if I showed that name to Carl, he would know exactly who it is, and he would have a good story or two about them. 1965 to 2025, that's over 60 years of friendship and stories and community building and service to congregation, denomination, and community. 60 years of blessing this congregation that will always continue to grow and expand in the gifts that he has given us. You can't really put a finger on any ministry here that hasn't been strengthened and deepened and made more lasting by Carl, and you never will be able to. So we light our chalice in gratitude for his light, his love, and his legacy. Pleased to invite Elia and Grace to come up and light our chalice.
We are Carl's granddaughters. I called him Bito.
I called him Gap Gap.
And he was grandpa to both of us. Some of you might know that Carl was a magician in his youth, and while he may not have continued with that profession, his magic never faded. He brought magic into the lives of everyone who met him, especially his kids and grandkids. I want to share a poem I wrote about the magical years I had with my amazing grandpa. Grandpa Time was magic. He was a never-ending book full of marvelous stories and adventures. No history class ever taught me more than him. Grandpa Time was magic. He gave me my first camera, taught me how he saw the world through its lens. I became a photographer, and still every click of my camera feels like a hug from him. Grandpa Time was magic. He'd turn everything into an adventure. Wrapping me up in the hammock, he'd say, "Watch out for turbulence," as he swung me high in the air. Grandpa Time was magic. Picking blueberries on hot summer days, looking through antiques in his hidden study, and catching fireflies at night among the trees. Grandpa Time was truly magic. He may have passed on, but his magic remains. It remains in each photograph I take, in each antique I cherish, in each story of his I tell, in each memory I hold dear, and most importantly, it remains in my heart, Grace's heart, and in the heart of everyone who loves him. And so, we light this chalice with our grandpa's magic.
Welcome to all of you here, and I know there's some people on Zoom as well, so welcome to everyone. It is in the spirit of this place that Carl loved everything, and he loved this place. He would have been so happy to see it filled with so many of you, not because you're here for him, which you are, but because he was too modest for that, and he didn't want it to be about him. He loved this congregation, and he always wanted every event to be fully attended. He'd drive by, and if the parking lot wasn't full, something's wrong. So as Bill mentioned, Carl brought me here in the fall of 1964, and it's been his religious, social, spiritual, service, and justice-seeking home ever since. Your presence here is important to him in another way. You are the confirmation of his immortality. He believed that when we die, our spirit lives on in whatever legacy we have left in the lives that we have touched. You are the cloud of witnesses confirming Carl's legacy. I know that I would not be the person I am or live the life I have lived were it not for Carl's faith in me, his support of my every endeavor, and his unswerving love. One of Carl's, wrong page. Carl left this little note many years before he died in papers that he knew Cindy and I would have to go through. And it says, Carol, Cindy, Carl, you were the best things in my life and I loved you deeply. Signed, Carl, Dad. Carl lived a high, wide, rich, and deep life, which we, Cindy, Ken, and I, hope to share with all of you. He was a devoted family man for his immediate family. He was deeply committed to his work and education. He delighted in nurturing groups of people, including 3 extended families, Fields, Rhodes, and Huckabees, and a men's group of some 30 years. He was committed to this church and to the larger Unitarian Universalist world. His artistic sense included photography and also house design. He was an immediate friend to people upon first acquaintance. He was a very good listener. And he was a deeply loyal friend to people and to organizations over time. One of Carl's identifying qualities was his love of hats. I found some 31 of them. And I'm wearing this that was created for the party he threw for his 80th birthday. So friends and family will be modeling some of them as they share their stories of how Carl showed up in their lives. None of us knew him totally. Together, we are grateful for his life and bless his memory.
So I chose this hat because when I was in elementary school, I knit this for my dad, and he very dutifully and loyally wore it for years, or at least when I was around. I have my dad's eyes. Through these eyes, I have witnessed an amazing human whom I have known and loved my entire life. No person can be summed up in a few-minute talk, or even less this intriguing, wonderful, gentle soul who lived for almost 97 years. I have my dad's intellectual curiosity, but mine was no match for his. Who here has not had the pleasure of hearing one of Dad's fascinating and sometimes tedious stories about something new he had learned? Until the end, he delighted in learning new things. He was intrigued by this world and found joy in sharing his fascination and facts with others. I have my dad's love of nature. I was not born a hiker, but became one with Dad's help. Dad would get us to keep walking by hiding chocolate coins under mushrooms that he said were left there by leprechauns. One especially long hike, he kept me going by telling me that around the next corner, around the next corner, there was a rock that King Arthur split with his sword. Well, he was convincing, and I did make it to the end of the hike. I have my dad's love of collecting things. When I was young, among other things, I collected hubcaps. Dad would patiently drive me around to find hubcaps on the side of the road. One time, he even helped me make a hubcap detection device with a bell on a box. I could count on him to support me in many ways, and that loving dependability was consistent throughout my life. I have my dad's sense of direction, but you could drop Dad in a new city he'd never visited, and right away he'd find the coolest museums, the best restaurants, and of course, the coolest antique store. I want to tell you what I love most about my dad. I loved how playful and silly he could be. The Easter Bunny left giant dust-colored tracks throughout the house on Easter. I can't be sure, but I've always suspected that Dad had a hand in this. He loved singing Waltzing Matilda, and not many people have witnessed Dad's dance moves, but they went something like this. But that was not what I loved most. I loved how creative he was. When we went camping, he would call the Great Spirit. He got everyone around the campfire, raising and lowering our arms as we said in unison, Oa, Tagu, Siam. It was years later on a hike that it finally dawned on me what he was having us say all those years. He would then dramatically put his hands to his head as he received some cryptic message from the Great Spirit that inevitably led us to finding a hidden Pink Panther bar or some other treat. I love that about Dad, but that is not what I loved most. I loved how he supported me. He was the person I went to when I knew I would be accepted for exactly who I was. When I came out, he didn't miss a beat, and he was joyful and truly happy for me. But what I loved most about Dad was how kind he was. He was fully engaged and truly interested in everyone he met. He asked questions, he listened deeply, and was fascinated what the people shared about themselves. He thought of kind things to do for people, and I know he cared deeply about everyone here and everyone on Zoom. I know he loved each of you. Clearly, I have my dad's tender heart. We both care deeply about people, the planet, animals, the climate, justice, honesty, and respect. He taught me how to be generous, how to apologize sincerely, and how to forgive. He taught me to care about something other than myself, and he taught me to always make the world a better place. I also have my dad's alma mater. The first president of Antioch, Horace Mann, famously said, "Be ashamed to die until you have won some victory for humanity." Although my dad won many victories, as you'll hear more about today, being our father was the most important in my opinion. Dad's dad didn't do a lot for him and was pretty absent. And my dad decided to be a really good dad. And he was the best father anyone could have ever hoped for. I will miss my dad beyond words, I still can't believe I can't talk with him or ask his advice. But what I do have is I have my dad's spirit. It's inside me, and this is how I have my dad with me all the time.
I want to thank everyone for coming. This room truly reflects how rich my father was. His wealth was measured in relationships. It would have made him very happy to know that you all came together to help us celebrate his life today. He had a way of connecting with people that was special, and the fact that you're here proves that out. So I want to share a couple stories. My dad was funny about making purchases, big purchases, small, it didn't matter. He always did a lot of research. He used Consumer Reports so much that he called it the Bible. Is that okay to say here? Okay. But he made sure he always got the best product at the best price. And through that, he formed some pretty strong opinions that he held for a long time. For example, the best cars were Hondas, no question. The best furniture was made from teak, and the best houses were designed by Bob Hillier. My father was a careful man who planned out almost everything. And as a result, my childhood was very smooth, which is pretty remarkable given the worldwide travels we went on. And being able to plan without the use of the internet, we always went on trips with a very detailed itinerary. And everywhere we went, he knew what to see, what to do, what food we should eat, and of course, the history of the location. We traveled all over the country, all over Europe, and we had amazing adventures. It was almost as if we had a local tour guide with us. The exception to this was a month or so that we spent in Mexico City. First, we went to an area of town where Dad learned that he had to pay a kid to watch his car to keep the same kid from stealing his car. Then another day we were driving through the city and he thought a police officer had motioned him through an intersection. He had not. The cop then chased him down to talk to him about this infraction. That was the day I learned what a bribe was. And then finally, one day the two of us went to the National Museum. We wandered the halls, looked at all the exhibits, and during lunch we had ice with our drinks because it was as hot as you would imagine August in Mexico City would be. Well, remember when I said he always knew what to eat? I guess that day he forgot that ice is actually frozen water, and I'll spare you the rest of it. It was a rare miscalculation for sure. While Dad was born in Ohio and raised there, he spent some time in Michigan, go Blue. He settled here in Princeton and became a proud local. Anyone visiting from out of town was given in-depth tours of Princeton and the surrounding areas. He loved to share the university campus, local parks, sculptures, and monuments. His tours were full of stories, rare facts he had learned, and he captured all these excursions with plentiful photographs. He loved learning new things and sharing them with anyone that he could. His ability to learn never left him, and his recall of events was fully intact his entire life. Just this past winter, he was sharing stories from his childhood with names and specific details at a level I likely would not be able to tell you about something that happened just a month ago for me. Following his retirement around 30 years ago, Dad began volunteering with several organizations. Driving blood to Philly for the Red Cross was one of these that became a regular part of his schedule. He was helping save lives, and it allowed him to visit a new museum every time he drove into town. And you may not know this, but there are over 112 museums in Philadelphia, and he made it his mission, and I believe he succeeded, to see them all. This volunteer work captures my dad perfectly, selflessly helping others while enhancing his own life, and doing so on a repeatable schedule. Mom? Moving forward without your life partner of 60 plus years will present a new challenge and new opportunities. However, I know you're going to be okay because you drive a Honda, you live in a house full of teak furniture, and it was designed by Bob Hillier. Dad, you lived an incredible 96 years, and your legacy is in this room. I love you.
Hi, we are the three of the four field girls, Lynn, Dara, and I'm Ruth. Our missing sister is Carla, who is named after Carl. Dad, Herb, grew up with Carl in Cleveland. As their mothers were great friends, the boys essentially were brought up as brothers and remained close their entire lives. Carl was always our uncle. Their relationship was a role model for a true, lasting relationship. My earliest memory of Carl is when he visited us in Los Angeles when I was 4. He let me throw the ice from his cooler onto the driveway. I have no idea why that has stuck with me all these years. When I asked Carl about the incident just a few years ago, he also remembered that day. Throughout the years, our family made many trips to Princeton. A highlight for us was the speedy car rides, hence the hat. Carl had a forest green MG. He would don his speedy car hat, put 3 of us in the car, and away we went around the back roads of Princeton. The house he and Carol designed with Bob Hillier was filled with his collection of unique antiques. Each visit brought a new gadget, and we usually couldn't figure out its use, even with many hints. Who but Carl would have a hammock in the living room? We looked forward to seeing how high Carl could push us. In true Carl fashion, there is a secret door to his study. It took us years to figure out how to open that door. We would poke all around the frame, and it would open from a different poked area each time. It would only open if Carl was there, standing in one particular spot. That should have been a clue. Our families took many vacations together. Our fondest memories include snorkeling in the Virgin Islands, cross-country skiing at the Trapp Family Lodge, and car trips across the United States with the Haags in their underpowered VW van, nicknamed the Cindy Mobile. Many of these vacations included camping with our matching tents. He would have had interesting anecdotes about the different places we visited. As previously mentioned by Cindy, calling on the Great Spirit completely had us fooled. It wasn't until well into our adulthood that we figured out what we were actually saying was, "Oh, what a goose I am." Carl was truly an integral part of our lives. We will forever cherish our memories, for which we are grateful.
going to speak this afternoon about some of the many contributions Carl made to this congregation. I first met Carl and Carol in the late 90s when my family began attending the Unitarian Church of Princeton. Carl was the guy with the camera who took pictures of what seemed like every service and every celebration. He was generously friendly and always took the time to speak with us, even as new members. Later, I came to learn that all Carl did for our congregation. Carl and Carol began attending this congregation way back in '64. Very quickly, Carl became involved in the senior youth program, helping to guide our young people towards adulthood. That role was followed by a stint as our vice president of finance for this congregation. Seeking to become even more involved in the church, he served as our president for several years. As this was before we adopted policy governance, leading to an executive team, being president was quite a bit of work. Many older congregants probably remember the trips Carl planned to Greece and Eastern Europe. These trips planted the seeds for our partner church program, leading to our partnership with the Unitarian Church in Transylvania. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to pronounce the name of that church. As a side note, Carl wrote an excellent article about this experience, which is available on our UUCP website. One of Carl's major achievements, in my opinion, was serving on the search committee that brought us our wonderful Reverend Bill Neely. For anyone who hasn't served on these committees, just know it's a lot of work, involving dozens of meetings and traveling to other UU congregations to hear potential candidates speak. Perhaps his prior experience on the search committee for Edward Frost honed his ability for this task. Some of you know that Carl was also responsible for our church bulletin board. He worked hard to keep the postings current and interesting. The library and our lower lounge was also Carl's idea, and he watched over it attentively. Carl led many programs for kids, including a May Madness event and photography classes, no surprise, a resourceful family course that he ran with Doug Rhodes, Doug, guided participants through a household management program. These are just a few of the many contributions Carl made to this congregation. I know that personally I'll miss him very much. He was an enthusiastic, vocal supporter of all our projects and never missed an opportunity to thank people for their contributions to them. Thank you, Carl, for all you've done for us.
Hello, fellow beloveds of Carl. My name's Lou Hatfield, and I had the pleasure of working with Carl in the 70s and 80s. And since then, I've enjoyed a great friendship with Carl and his family. And I'd like you all to just for a moment travel back to 1965, when he took over the Advanced Placement Program at ETS. The Advanced Placement Program, as some of you know, is a program through which primarily high school students take college-level courses and exam, and if they do well enough, they can earn college credit. When Carl took over the program, it was in its infancy. In fact, less than 10% of the high schools offered the program. Less than 1% of students took AP exams. So he really had enormous challenges. And when you're building a testing program, it's a complicated task. Not only do you have to put together, in this case, curriculum and materials to support AP teachers, but there were publications, there were budgets, there were client meetings. And with Carl's strong academic background and his zeal for teaching and learning and his analytical skills, he succeeded in so many of the early challenges that were before him with AP. Directing a program like AP also involves a lot of external stakeholders. First of all, you have the actual faculty committees who develop the exams. He had the parents. He had the individual associations, educational associations to deal with. And within ETS, he had to marshal all of the staff to make sure that stakeholders' needs were met. Carl's focus throughout his entire career at ETS, over 26 years, he always focused on maintaining the highest academic standards and finding new and creative ways to support AP teachers. He balanced his relationship with our client, the College Board, and as Doug Rhodes wisely said, I so admired Carl for his remarkable ability to meet client needs and budgets while juggling demands of test development committees, teachers, and parents. One of the things that I loved about Carl as a mentor is he solved all kinds of problems with great diplomacy and tact. I remember one occasion where a new test development committee insisted that the exam for their discipline be 5 hours. They couldn't do it in less time. Carl quickly ran over to the committee meeting, and he diplomatically explained the realities of school bus schedules and the statistical reliability of our existing 3-hour exams. That's an example of one more professional task that he took care of quickly, but there was another time that I remember at Trenton State College where we had contracted to score exams, and Carl and I and a very young aide arrived at 7:15 in the morning, all ready to go. And Carl grabbed the front door to the building, and it was locked. We split up. I ran around, tried to test all the other doors, and as I started to turn around, I could see this thunderous herd of readers coming down the hill. And as I was about to yell to Carl, I turned and looked, and he was pushing this very unhappy aide in through a window into the building. Problem solved. When I asked Carl at some point, you know, what drove him, he would always refer, as we've talked about earlier, to Carol and Ken and Cindy. You really were the magic underneath his wings. Now, if we step ahead to 2025 and we take a look at his legacy, what we see is that as of 2024, almost 58 million students have taken over 100 million AP exams in 38 different subject areas. What an educational fire and outstanding legacy Carl left. When I asked the former president of ETS about Carl and his contribution to global education, he summed it best. Carl Haag was a leader of the most significant educational enterprise in the world, the AP program. The program gives fantastic opportunities to millions of students. Through his leadership, ETS and College Board were able to achieve their mission to advance quality and equity in education for all. AP continues to this day, larger but with the same values and goals instilled by Carl's incredible foundational leadership. In closing, I'd like to thank Carol, Ken, and Cindy for lovingly coping with Carl's many, many long hours and his absences for 26 Junes during AP scoring. He truly made an indelible mark on education throughout the world, and his legacy will continue for not only his grandchildren, but millions and millions of future AP scholars. Kudos and hats off to Carl.
Let's see. He always a little more joint. Okay. Well, dear friends, back in February or March of this year, Carl and I challenged ourselves to write eulogies for each other, much like Jimmy Carter and Gerald Ford did. I wrote mine, but Carl didn't have a chance to write mine. Thank goodness. It was quite a relief. But it did teach me, though, that you must tell your friends and your loved ones how much they mean to you while they are alive, not so much after they've gone. None of us want to be here today. We'd much prefer to be raising our cup of Carl's glug, wishing good tidings and friendship, or we would prefer to be running down some well-worn path with bouncing backpacks while Carl points out things of interest or plants that we should not eat. Or we would like to be sitting in the ETS cafeteria, sitting at the right side of his good ear. I met Carl at ETS in 1968. He wore a jaunty beret, and he drove a beautiful dark green MGB. And you could smell the upholstery. It's wonderful. He and Carol, by the way, are the ones responsible for Daphne and me joining this congregation family years ago. It was here that I worked on developing my own belief system, burnished my values, and for that I am profoundly grateful to Carol and to Carl and to you as well. Quite often during these last tragic and tumultuous year, I have been reflecting a lot on what John Lewis said. John Lewis said that when he prayed, he had to move his feet. That is, he had to do something. Now, I don't know whether Carl prayed, but he surely moved his feet. He showed up. We were part of what Carl and others called the resourceful family. During our dinners each month, we shared our family news, wonder, wisdom, support. We also went on field trips. One time we went on Pete Seeger's sloop, the Clearwater, not just for fun, but also to celebrate and to honor the efforts that were made to reclaim our environment. Our families went on camping trips out west. Carl drove his well-worn Volkswagen bus. We pitched our tents under the majestic redwood trees and hiked to the restless surf of the Pacific Ocean. There were bicycle forays, there were trips to New England, and the canoeing with our resourceful family in the Pine Barrens. My grandson, Zach, at a very young age declared to his mother, "The bad thing about having fun is that it's over too soon." And that's the way our family feels about Carl. It was over too soon. And as too many people already have said, Carl may have been that mysterious great spirit. And you know what he would teach our kids. Oh, wa te goose. Yeah. Another thing about Carl is that he was the Rick Steves of Princeton. Name almost any place on this planet, and he's been there at least once. He could give you a spontaneous list of things to see and explore. He might even identify a hostel or a hotel or a special restaurant that had acceptable wine or local fare. Carl was amazing because he would follow it up with brochures and some other accounts. And this left you breathless, either because you had no more air listening to him, or that you've canceled your trip because you feel you've already been there. There were more sides to Carl than a prism dangling from a window shade. Each cut through which his sunlight flowed cast wonderful rainbows that danced before our eyes. He His rainbows filled our rooms. Carl was an attentive listener. He was intensely interested in you. His eye contact, his conversations with you focused on what you were thinking and what was going on in your lives. And in this, he honored you, and you felt affirmed. Carl made you feel immediately enveloped in his kindness and his understanding and his support, and yes, his love. No, none of us wants to be here today. We would much prefer to be with Carl, taking our take on life and thinking about the possibilities. Carl no longer casts a shadow on this earth, but each of us feels his presence, and we are enriched in having known him. It was Sophocles who said, "One must wait until evening to see how splendid the day has been." It may be so with people. We are indeed fortunate because we possess the gift of knowing Carl when he was alive and amongst us. And with him, it was always a bright and sunny morning.
Good afternoon. I told my son yesterday that Carl had died. And he said, oh, he had that wonderful secret door to his study. Carl, it was no secret to anybody. My days would stop when his email blasts would arrive. I just had to read them. The tours, the signs, and the misspelled signs. They were all just a delight in every day. In 1966, my first year in practice, Carl and Carol came to me and asked me to design their house. It was the second house in my whole career that I was to do. And it was quite an adventure. Sorry. Oh, okay. Thank you. And it was quite an adventure. I was a modernist, and it turned out Carl was a traditionalist. He felt there should be broad plank floors and stone walls, and I wanted light and height, and we argued. We argued on every single point. They were friendly arguments, but they were arguments. And we got to the point where we said we needed a bronze plaque for every argument. And we were going to post those plaques around the house. Can you imagine a house full of little bronze plaques that said Bob won, Carl won? The house got finished, and I was invited over for dinner. And it was a nice dinner, it was fine. And on the way out, Carl said, we got to have a bronze plaque unveiling. And we walked out, and there was a bronze plaque that said I designed their house. And there are people who know me because of that bronze plaque. It was very special. I moved into my own house, just below the Haag house, about 3 years later. I built a modern a Mesian steel house, all steel and glass. And it had mirrored glass walls that reflected the woods in which it sat. And the whole idea was by reflecting the woods, the house would disappear into the woods. It was all wonderful plate glass. Then November came, and I was leaving for work, and I walked out, and oh my God, one of the 8x8 glass panels was cracked. And I thought, damn, I should have used tempered glass. tempered glass at the time always had a waver or a wrinkle about it, so it wasn't an accurate reflection. And I wanted an accurate reflection of the wood, so I just used plate glass. Too bad. Then the second day, I walked out, and there was another 8x8 sheet of glass cracked. And I thought, this is getting to be too much. And I went over and looked at it, and there was an arc of water on that crack. And it turned out that the Haag's Labrador Retriever had a crush on our little toy poodle, and he was expressing his love by coming down and doing his business on our house. So I called Carl and I said, what are we going to do about this? He said, well, I'll call you in the morning when I'm letting the dog out. And he said, and you go out with a broom, and as he's rushing down the driveway to express his love, you go after him with the broom. We had the dog trained never to come on my property within a week. Then a little bit later, this strange guy arrives at our house, and he was an insurance adjuster. And he said, are you Mr. Hillier? And I said, yes, I am. And I said, why are you here? And he said, and he opened up a file, and he read it. He said, I'm here because of a dog peed on a house. Carl, my character up the street, had arranged for us to be reimbursed for the cost of the glass. He was a character, and he wasn't a character in an old man sense of it. He was a lifetime character, and I loved him. Like all of you here today, I already miss him. I'll cherish my memories of Carl. I think of him as a beautiful human being, but always a character. Thank you very much.
This song was written by Marjorie Herman for Carl's 80th birthday to celebrate him. And we adapted it today so we can celebrate him here and now. I am going to sing the chorus for you, and I invite you to join me. Hats off to Carl, you true blue, curiosity through and through. Generosity was your life's game. 80 cheers to your good name. Carl's known for his hat. Oh, let's do it again. Let us do it again. Hats off to Carl, you were true blue. Curiosity through and through. Generosity was your life's game. 80 cheers to your good name. And for his hat, no matter when, on an English Channel trip, he brought up his tent. An Antioch cap or a Frenchman's beret, they kept off the rain and dangerous rays. And a big furry hat, a small baseball cap, or a cozy knit one, he's a most dashing chap. Even when wearing an Aussie's chapeau, he donned the one hat that's most apropos. Hats off to Carl, you were true blue. Curiosity through and through. Generosity was your life's game. 80 cheers to your good name. This was man who was born to explore, a map in one hand and a book of fine lore. He loved all the colors, he know history. He loves knowing all, and he also loved mystery. Hats off to Carl knew. He walked and he biked, he trained and he flew. And on the way there, he made such good friends. On the road and at home, his kindness he tends. Hats off to Carl, you were true blue. Curiosity through and through. Generosity was your life's game. 80 cheers to your good name. Carl was a planner, he spelled out the way. If you followed his lead, you'd have a great day. Don't go to a museum if you want to walk fast, or he'd read every word up to the last. Article is what friendship is well about. He listens and he cares, so you knew that you can. So you lent his note with a really loud cheer. Hats off to Carl, we're so glad you were here. Hats off to Carl, you were true blue. Curiosity through and through. Generosity was your last name. Every cheers for your good name. Hats off to Carl, you were true blue. Curiosity through and through. Generosity was your life game. 80 cheers to your good name.
Thank you, Carol. So I'm Carmen Catades. I'm here to tell you about still another of the long-lasting contributions that will survive Carl long after his passing. 38 years ago, a friend of Carl's called Bram Ort had an idea that it would be a good thing for there to be a men's group. Ladies have all sorts of social groups where they get together, but men hadn't that so much. So, but Bram was a very shy Dutchman, and his English wasn't very good, but he knew what to do with his idea. So he went to Carl. And so this is 1987. And pretty soon there was an agenda for this meeting. There was a schedule for the meetings. Nothing was left unplanned, as is always the case with Carl. The meetings were every 3 weeks, year-round. The next meeting will be this coming Thursday, in fact, the 650-something version of this meeting. The agenda for the meeting was really genius. The first hour of the meeting was spent with the guys telling one another what they've been doing, what their family's been doing, what's happened to them in the previous 3 weeks since the last meeting. The second half of the meeting was a discussion. The meetings rotated from house to house of the members. The member whose house it was responsible for providing refreshments. But in addition to that, he had the privilege of choosing the discussion topic that took place in the second hour of the meeting. Now, this was a genius of an agenda because in the first hour, guys got to know one another. When you're every 3 weeks meeting with guys, learning about what their kids are doing, how they raise their family, what kind of job they're doing, etc., you get to know these guys extremely well. As a result of that, there is nothing that you cannot discuss in the latter half of the meeting without having it peaceful and civilized, because you've learned respect for these guys, what they've done, and of course, what they think and what they believe about whatever the topic has been. And the topics range anything from personal finance to political issues to health issues. You name it, in the 38 years the topics were beyond belief. I joined the group 4 years after it began and have continued in it for the last 34 years now. And it's been a great part of my life. Some of the best friends I've made have been through Carl's influence on this group. Carl continued with the group until 2020, when the COVID hit. At that point, the group had to go on Zoom, and Zoom was not a comfortable thing for Carl. Neither the machinations of the computer nor the fact that it was no longer eye-to-eye, rub in the flesh, etc. And so Carl, in the year in which I think he gave up a lot of his other activities, gave up the men's group. But we carry on. A couple of the guys are here, and I'm glad to tell you that Carl's work in this area will continue, much as Carol's own ministries are continuing. Thank you very much.
Hello, I am Tom Stites. Carl and I were connected through the UUA, where I was the editor and publisher of UU World magazine for 10 years before I retired. But I also know Carl through Carol, and now I'm going to ad-lib just for a few seconds. The impresario needs to know these things. The hat I just put on says Schwartz Engineering Company. Pete Schwartz was a dear, dear friend of mine in high school, and he was Carol's brother. He and I had sort of a blood agreement written in blood that we were going, when he got out of college, we were going to buy an airplane together and fly. But then he went off one way and I went another. We were a year apart. I took a year off. One thing, we just never, ever got our friendship back together. Lived in different cities, and life went on. Because of my UU World things, did I say? I didn't say. That Carol and I met as teenagers in Kansas City when we were Episcopalians. And I had no idea that there was such a thing as a Unitarian Universalist, and she's shaking her head that she didn't either. So decades elapsed, and it's complicated, but through the fact that somebody called attention to her that the guy in the magazine who writes a column every month, has a little picture and says all this stuff, is the same little twerp that hung out with her younger brother in Kansas City all these decades ago. And she got in touch with me, and we got in touch. She and Carl and my wife and I got together at the next General Assembly, and the first thing that happened is Carl started taking pictures. Anyway, my wife and I now cherish the set of prints that he sent us, because it really is the beginning of a sort of a reunion of an ancient friendship that had never happened before. And we became dear, dear friends, both in the UUA and as just people. And I am here missing Carl, but I'm here eager to tell you the impact that Carl had on Unitarian Universalism beyond this wonderful congregation, where he had a huge and highly visible impact. He also had so much love and energy and skill and devotion to Unitarian Universalism that spilled way out beyond his church into the region and into the entire national apparatus of the
I think it made him interested in my work, and I was certainly interested in his. He was one of those lay leaders who worked largely in the background on a national scale, not here, and he made UU churches everywhere better, and he made our faith stronger. The Metro New York District provided an array of services to congregations in the city and in New Jersey, Connecticut, and New York suburbs. Carl became a board member. No surprise then, he was elected the president. And I've talked to several people this weekend who became president, succeeding him, because he twisted their arm with real torque until they said yes. Then separately, he served on the Ministerial Fellowship Committee, which is a national body that most people here have never heard of, but it's their job to assess the progress of candidates to become UU ministers and decide often to guide them to go do new stuff before they try again for fellowship, and sometimes shoo them right through and say, yeah, go. And he and a few other lay people and some ministers, more ministers, assessed them and gave a huge amount of thought, and essentially helped shape the formation of the ministers that would be the next generation of the people who lead our faith. And then there was his role, arm in arm with Carol, in strengthening their beloved Murray Grove, the Universalist shrine and retreat center, not much more than an hour's drive from here. One of the byproducts of our friendship is deepening of the Universalist side of my faith. Carl's UU legacy will live on in this congregation, as anybody who is sitting here already knows, but it will also live on in congregations in this region, in congregations everywhere who are served by ministers whose formation he helped to shape. And of course, in his family and his friends, and through the spirit that will never stop inspiring all of us. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I want you to know how pleased I am to be here to honor my friend of 60 years, Carl Haag. We met in this room. In those days, this building was it. We entered through the back, they brewed coffee over there, and we had an odd assortment of chairs, I will tell you. And as members of the church, we did what you do. We came to services on Sunday, we were on committees, we were on cleanup groups, we were on field trips and Sunday school and all of those kinds of things, pretty much centered here. But then as our children got older, we started taking some trips together. And that worked. I mean, that was 9 people, and they all managed to enjoy each other's company. The crown and the jewel was the year we took a canal trip in the Midlands of England. Each family had its own boat. Top speed was 5 miles an hour. If the kids got squirrely, we put them out on the towpath. But we needed them because there were steps. Do you remember that step lock? You went from one lock to the next near the Welsh border, and there were lift bridges. It was a really fun adventure. And our admiral of 2 ships, of course, was Carl. And he had read about this canal in the National Geographic. And I think there's not a one of us who were there who just don't remember that with great fondness. Well, all good things come to an end, and after 10 years, my husband took a job in Ohio. And I figured, oh boy, that's it for our friendship. But wait, Carl was a native-born Buckeye. He went to Antioch College, after all, and that influenced not only you, Cindy, wherever you are, my son Al and his wife Polly. They had a mini reunion last night. those Antioch folks. And I can't resist telling you this. Carl told me this for what reason I don't know. But as an undergraduate, there was a young lady he was interested in, and he made a plan to meet her at the one theater in town to see the movie, which was about pirates. And I can just guess how Carl was dressed when he got there. And I know for what he told me, he had a sword. And I'm sure he brandished it with great aplomb. But then suddenly, what are you going to do with the sword? He decided to put his inside his trouser leg. So it was gone, no problem, until he tried to sit down or walk. So that lady, I don't think was won over. You're safe, Carol. My life in Ohio at that time, I was a teacher at Hayes High School, where all my children went, and I was now the head of the science department, and I wanted to have an AP science class. We had an English one, we had a history one, and I knew Carl had mentioned something about AP, so I turned to him for advice. And the end of the line is, it didn't take very long before we had an AP biology class. And Carl really did know something about AP. He knew everything about AP. And eventually I got to be a reader, which is a rare, rare occasion. I've got to say, of all the people I've known and loved, I would have to say that Carl was a promoter. He promoted this church. He promoted his family. He promoted photography. He promoted gourmet foods. He promoted his house. He just was so full of things he was excited about and curious about, and wanted to tell us about and share about and listen to what we wanted to tell him we were excited about. So I've got to believe that though he had a long life, he lived a long life. And I truly believe that there's a spark in me and all of those of us who loved him that will help us hang on to that joie de vivre. And so I say thank you, Carl, to life, l'chaim.
So I have known Carl since I was 4 years old and a member of this church, along with my mother, who you just heard from, and my sister Amy, who will be joining me up here shortly, and my brother Al, who's right there. If you had an usher you in, there's a 33.3% chance that it was by Al that you were ushed. So Carl reached out to me about 4 months ago. And he knew that the end was coming close, and he and I were long-term pen pals, and he shared with me, I always wanted to commission a song with you, because that's something I do. And he said, I don't know why I didn't do it sooner, but I want to do it now. And my 60th wedding anniversary is coming up in July, and I don't know if I will make it or not. But I really want to have a song that's there waiting for both of us to celebrate if we're both here, or that's there for Carol if I don't make it. He said I had until July to get the song written, but I thought it maybe wouldn't be wise to not drop everything and write the song. So that's what we did. And you've heard that Carl's not a big fan of Zoom. If there's anyone that likes it less, it's probably me. But we Zoomed for this interview, which tells you how much he wanted to do it, because he truly was not a fan of Zoom. So we did an interview. We did it with both of them together. And I spent 2 hours on the phone with Carl and Carol asking them all kinds of questions, like, tell me what it felt like when you were falling in love with each other. Or, what's the first thing you remember about each other? Or who knew which one loved the other one first? What are some adjectives that would describe the things that, the way you think about this person or the way that you love each other? Tell me some memories you had that really stand out as a moment that you were incredibly close with each other. It was such an incredible experience for me because I've known you all my life, but it was so much coming out in this interview. And at the end of the interview, I heard from each of them together and separately, and they both said, that experience of talking together to you about falling in love was so powerful. It has breathed this life and love right back into our relationship. It was almost as if they were kind of saying to me, we don't really care what the song sounds like. Because this was pretty good all by itself. So they did care about what the song sounds like, and I wanted to share two things with you about this song that might make it more interesting and make more sense for you to hear it. At the end of the 2 hours, I said, I always try to do this in a song interview. I said, I'm going to try to take everything that you just said in 2 hours and get it into a sentence to see if I'm on the right track. And so I said, this is the sentence I would say. I would say, we are saying I love you to each other and the world. And Carol made this nice little noise, oh. And Carl said, that's perfect, that's it, that's what we're trying to say here. So the other thing that emerged that might make this song more meaningful is that, I don't know if you know this, I didn't know this, inside each of their wedding rings is an inscription. And the inscription says, all my love. So that is the name of this song. And when I played it for them, even though I don't think they cared anymore whether they were going to like it or not, they both liked it very much. I'm always waiting to see who needs to nitpick what word or change what word, and both of them said, nope, that's exactly it. You don't need to change anything. You caught that. So what I'd like to do is read you the first verse, and then I'm going to invite my sister Amy up, and we're going to perform it for you. I always think it's helpful to hear a couple of the words before you listen to the song. So here it is. We are saying I love you to each other and the world. We are standing together in our corner of the world, and from here we see love in all of the green trees through this magical forestry. And from here we see love in all the faces we hold dear, the way our feelings come through so clear, so many people to love, and always back home to you, darling dear. So I'm going to invite my sister, Amy. She's going to help me out with the flute and probably a hat. All right, twins. Can you hear the guitar okay? Does it need to be too loud? We are saying I love you to each other and the world. We are standing together in our corner of the world. And from here we see love in all of the green trees through this magical forestry. And from here we see love in all the faces we hold dear, the way our feelings come through so clear. So many people to love, and always back home to you, darling dear. All my love, it's a secret inside my ring.
side. I see love everywhere. We are saying I love you to each other and the world. To the people who need us and the quiet call of service as it swells and shows us the way and opens our hearts, fills the story of our days. All my love, there's a secret inside my ring. All my love, it's the adventure of everything, always more we can share. You have held me, you have buoyed me, you have shown me there is love here, there is love everywhere. There is love everywhere.
The poem For the Children by Gary Snyder follows. The rising hills, the slope of statistics lie before us, the steep climb of everything going up, up as we all go down. In the next century or the one beyond that, they say, are valleys, pastures. We can meet there in peace if we make it. To climb these coming crests, one word to you and your children. Stay together, learn the flowers, go light. Carl was one of the first people I met here at UU Princeton. As Peter mentioned, he was on the ministerial search team with whom I, along with several other candidates, danced for a few months to see if we were the right fit for each other years ago. When I came to Princeton for an interview, Carl and Carol's house was the first that I visited, as the committee and I spent a Saturday morning there getting to know one another. We were supposed to get together Friday night, however. I was flying from Detroit in February, and the winter storm had delayed everything and then kept delaying the flight again and again and again over the course of the day. It was one of those long, no one knows anything days at the airport that we all love so much. At first, I was worried about getting word to the search team about the delays, that I would be getting in later and later and later, and that some things that we had planned just weren't going to be possible. But when I checked my email to get the contact info to call them, I saw that Carl had already sent me several emails that morning. He had been keeping up with the weather here in New Jersey. He knew all about the flight delays. He was completely on it. He assured me that the committee had already started adjusting our schedule and that things would be fine if I could just get there. At first, he said that he would still pick me up from what I now know is the Dinky station when the train dropped me off. But that drop-off got to be in the middle of the night, and over email, I somehow managed to convince him that I would be able to get from the station to the hotel on my own room. He was hesitant, and it was not easy to convince him. But somehow he agreed, which made me more comfortable because I didn't want him driving around at 2 a.m. to come pick me up. However, in his hesitant assent to this plan, he sent the most detailed instructions on taking the train from Newark to Princeton to the Dinky ever drafted anywhere. He included not only the signs to follow in the airport to the train station, but the signs to avoid following so I didn't go to the wrong train station. He included taxi numbers to call when I got there in case there were none at the stand. The email had a very hefty word count. He was thorough and thought of contingencies and made sure that I knew that if some reason I didn't have a ride once I got to the Dinky, I should call him regardless of the hour, and he'd get up and come get me. That's a really good way to make sure that someone knows that you care, and not just about them. He'd have done that and been happy doing that for anyone. That sense of who he, and by extension this congregation was, pulled through. I would learn quickly that that was just Carl being Carl, kind, thorough, and welcoming. I'd learned that by watching him and by watching and listening to how others reflected upon him and interacted with him in this church. This instinct to extend the offer, to be of service, to make someone's journey a little easier than it would otherwise be, is such a gift in this world. We are urged so often to look out for ourselves, to concern ourselves not with others' concerns, to be wary and suspicious of one another. We are divided and divided and divided again, such that the stranger in this warped and faithless world automatically becomes someone who wishes to take something from us, someone from whom we should keep distance. This isolates us. It makes us small in spirit and stingy in service. It bottlenecks our lives, cramming us together with a few instead of bringing us into broader and broader relationship. It hardens our sight and tenses our shoulders. And though we are loved beyond all belief, we love less and less in return. The point of our faith is to realize that we are loved beyond all belief and to use that foundation to go love beyond everything that divides us. It's to grow that love within spiritually so that we can grow it in the world religiously. And though we can grow as one, we grow much more together with the strength and challenge of living a deeply connected life. That togetherness keeps us from becoming a little too concerned with ourselves and a little too judgy of others. We remain one, but choose to live as one among many, and the safety and edges of that dynamic are what really strengthen and grow the always one and always relational spirit. And the great ones, they just do that wherever they go. Not just in a religious house, but at work, at play, in the community, with the family, with an ever-growing circle of friends that feels natural, but is often cultivated and nurtured by expressed interest, expressed enthusiasm, expressed concern. Carl expressed his enthusiasm and appreciation. He expressed his concerns and hesitancies, and he lived in a way that balanced those words and deeds and a life that made evident those values. Doing that here for so long enters him into that ethereal category of those described to be in the very walls of this place. We say that about the ancestors, that a sense of their love and commitment lives on in the walls of this place. From there, they smile upon us, strengthen us. From there, they sing with us and pray with us. They are with us in all that we do, as we hope to leave that same legacy for those to come. They are in the walls of this place, we say, as we wish ourselves to one day be. Carl is there, but he is also in the walls of our hearts. His kindness, his presence, his love was never just for this place. Though it blesses us enormously, it was too big for one place. It was meant for a big, lovely world that is sometimes also unlovely. It was for communities packed with people who still sometimes feel lonely. It was for those living with a kind of staleness in life, but whose zest for living can be piqued by an interesting story or a history mostly forgotten. Carl taught us all how to live in that most generous way, where our presence and spirit and words and deeds build the good here and everywhere. As the poet said in his message for children, he taught us to stay together. He taught us to learn the flowers, or whatever things of interest and beauty call to us, learn them and share them. The poet's third message was to go light, which Carl was a collector. I'm not sure he went very light, or maybe for him what he did was very light. Maybe he really wanted all the collectible things, but he limited himself. Or maybe the poet's final words of go light are incomplete, for there's no period at the end of the poem. Maybe it's go light hope, go light love, go light friendship, go light goodness and kindness and joy and peace. Use your light to shine a light upon others, and collected, those lights will let people know that no one is alone in the dark. May this legacy of Carl Haag be ours to embody now. May he live forever in the walls of this place and in the walls of his heart. May his family find peace. And may we all find joy in our memories of him, in our bonds to one another, and in our mutual service of all that is good and all that is holy. May it be so, and amen.
Last December, the Haags were kind enough to host me overnight in their home between our evening holiday party here at UU Princeton and the next morning's Hanging of the Greens worship service. I live quite a bit further away than the just 5 minutes down the road that they do, and they graciously offered me their guest room with the same warm-heartedness in which they invited me a number of years before I served here when I was in my first ministry to Thanksgiving in their home. When I couldn't make it home to family, you were my family that day. So after our holiday party, it was about 8:30 in the evening when Carol and I arrived back from the party, both yawning a bit. I think we both expected we would have some pleasantries, a quick conversation, would make it to bed. I thought, if Carl is even awake. Carl was awake, and he had us up chatting for almost 2 hours. First, he shared with us all he knew about Taylor Swift. He had just read an article about her. And we talked about my upcoming visit to the Midwest to see my family, which led him to share more of his growing up in Cleveland. And then I asked when Carl had first learned about Unitarianism. Specifically, I asked, well, when it was that you and Carol came to the first time to this congregation. Was that it? And from that, Carl began to share with me his spiritual journey from childhood, of not being raised in a religious home, of how the churches he tried as a youth, he went out curious as ever to see what that was all about, but they were boring, and they talked about things that he didn't believe in. Of how when he was at Antioch in Chicago, he wanted to meet people, so he joined in programs at a Methodist church until they used scripture as a basis for racism and discrimination. Now, I can't recall if he was still in Chicago or after moving to Ann Arbor for graduate school, but at some point he found and attended the Society for Ethical Culture. And while in that community, he found literature about the American Humanist Society, and he started going there and did so for some time, and it was among the humanists he learned about Unitarians. During a visit home to Cleveland, Carl attended his first Unitarian worship service at the West Shore Church in Rocky River. And from that time on, he would attend Unitarian churches from time to time if they were close by to someplace he was traveling to. And when he came to Princeton from Ann Arbor, he started to come to some of our services here. And then when he met Carol, he brought her here. And this is when Carol stopped the conversation. You mean you came to the Princeton Unitarian Church before we first came together? 60 years of marriage, and Carl had never told her that. He said at the time that since Carol had been an active Episcopalian, he wasn't sure how she would react to the Unitarian Church, so he approached it that they were discovering it together. Carol readily admits that she was so in love with Carl that if he had said, "Let's go jump off a bridge," she would have done it. But we had a pretty good laugh that night over this big reveal. It is with Thanksgiving we cherish these memories of Carl, those that have been shared, those that others are holding in our hearts, the laughter we shared with him, the kindness and the attention that he showered on us. Friends, will you pray with me? Spirit of life and love, hold our smiles and tears, hold our grief and gratitude as we remember Carl. Hold his beloveds in your care, especially so Carol and Cindy and Ken, Nikki, Elia, and Grace. While this is our formal goodbye, Carl's spirit lives on. It lives in all the ways that we remain curious about the world and about the beings upon it. It lives on when we ask after one another and really listen and remember and respond. It lives on in the ways we serve and lead with integrity and compassion. It lives on in all the expressions and the experiences of joy that he would wish for us. We will miss you, Carl. We are grateful and gladdened by your presence on this earth and enriched by your presence in our lives. May we bestow love and kindness to others as you have shown them to us. Amen, and blessed be. And now we invite one another to join in our closing hymn. When the saints go marching in, the words are in the insert in your order of service. Please rise in body or in spirit. And I am to add, this is something Carl wanted sung.
After the benediction, all are invited to stay for a reception. It's mostly out there in Robinson Lounge. We're grateful to our Women's Alliance for hosting it. But feel free to spread out. You can come back in here. There's a lounge downstairs. Make yourselves at home while you're here. For our benediction, may the truth that sets us free and the hope that never dies and the love that casts out fear be with us now until the day spring breaks and the shadows flee away. Go in peace and amen.